Hello, this is Jeff Word from SAP, and over the next few minutes I'm going to talk to you briefly about an exciting opportunity SAP is engaging with value-added resellers to help us bring the power and innovation of SAP HANA to companies all around the world so that they can operate as real-time businesses. Over the past 40 years, SAP has been innovating quite amazingly in the world of applications, and one of the main things that we have realized over that time, building those applications for mission-critical business operations, is that the technological infrastructure underneath those applications, the hardware and the databases that are needed for our applications layer, are really starting to hold things back. And especially when you start to look at the massive volumes of data that are now coming into the system and the increased volume of transactions and reports that need to be run on massive amounts of data, the existing infrastructure that most companies are familiar with and have running today is completely insufficient for the types of real-time and high-volume transactions and reporting that are going to be needed over the next several years. What we've seen is that the data layer has really been the boat anchor slowing everything down. And when you get right down to it, it's really just a problem of physics. Over the past several years, SAP has noticed an unacceptable level of performance degradation in the applications that we build due to the deficiencies of the disk-based databases underneath those systems. For most of SAP's history, you've been able to purchase our applications and then decide whether you want to run them on top of an Oracle, IBM, or Microsoft database. And that was fine back in the days of a few gigabytes of data. Today, with multiple terabytes of data, approaching even petabytes of data, that level of performance degradation is completely unacceptable for SAP, specifically when you consider the mission-critical aspects of most of our software. What we did was a research project to find out exactly why that performance was decreasing, even when the physical technology underneath it was supposed to be getting faster. And what we found is that disk-based databases had actually reached the full limits of their performance based on Newtonian physics. You just physically can't spin a disk any faster. 15,000 RPM disks have been the fastest disks that you could buy for about 20 years now, and they're never going to get any faster. It's just the physical nature of having a platter full of disks and having those spindles going back and forth across them. You can't do it any faster. And so what SAP decided to do was completely rethink what a data layer underneath our applications needs to provide. And we decided to eliminate this problem of Newtonian physics and start fighting more appropriately with Albert Einstein and the speed of light. By putting everything into memory and putting all of your database 100% in memory all of the time, you can fundamentally transform the way the applications can use that data sitting in RAM. But the slow performance of the database for the applications is only part of the problem. When you actually look at all of the other things inside your architecture that are necessary to overcome the deficiencies of that disk-based database underneath your transactional system, specifically things like your business warehouse systems, big data warehouses, accelerators, all sorts of other things that have to be used in order to get value out of that data that's been captured in the transactional system. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars worth of technology that is only needed to overcome the deficiencies of that disk-based database. A good example of this is iTunes. So on the left part of the slide, you can see the transactional system. That's an SAP ERP system running underneath iTunes today. Everything ever sold on iTunes has been recorded as a sales order in an SAP system. And that SAP system sits on top of a massive server with a massive disk-based database underneath it. Now, the primary job of that iTunes server is to basically print money for Apple, right? But the challenge is they can't figure out what they've sold in that system very easily, because if you want to do high-volume reads on the same database that's taking such high-volume writes, those commits from the sales orders, you're going to have a significant problem because you're going to slow the system down and not be able to take any orders, which kind of defeats the purpose of having a money machine like that. So what they have to do is they have to ETL or export every night all of the things that they've sold that day out of the transactional system over to a highly optimized business warehouse system from SAP as well that sits on another massive server with another massively expensive database. But even that's too slow to actually do any real reporting off of it because of the massive amounts of data that are involved. So what they do from there is they take it to another system that speeds it up somehow. And once they get into that system, then they can put SAP Business Objects front-end reporting tools on top of it to actually find out what they've sold. Now, in addition to being hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of extra equipment that have to be done, it also results in massive amounts of labor, human activities to get the data from one place to the next, to the next, to the next, so that someone can actually see what they've sold. This whole process also takes a lot of time. It can go sometimes a week between when they sell something to when they can actually see what they sold. All of these downsides are strictly 100% root cause based on the deficiencies of that disk-based database underneath the original transactional system. If Apple had a completely 1000% performant database underneath that system that could do billions and billions and billions of high volume reads per second at the same time and without risk to the millions and millions of sales orders per minute that they're doing, Apple would not need to have any of that extra stuff in their architecture, would they? That's really what we're trying to solve with HANA. The problem of all of these different pieces of the architecture that are simply needed to overcome the deficiencies of the disk-based database underneath the transactional system. In fact, the entire world of OLAP exists to overcome those deficiencies. And by providing a single database that has one copy of the data that both OLTP and OLAP can use at the same time without any risk, without any performance degradation, that's the really holy grail that SAP is trying to achieve with this HANA database, this massive simplification of not just the data layer, but of the entire architecture around those database systems that exists only because of the deficiencies of that disk-based database. Let me give you a couple of examples of how this works in the real world. Our good friends at Molson Coors have actually been able to take a process that took 4 weeks, and by putting HANA underneath it and eliminating a lot of the different complexity and the human work that was needed to move data from one place to the other and prep it and get it ready to go, they've gone from 4 weeks down to 20 minutes. Not just the execution of the system, right? But the entire process took 4 weeks, now is done in 20 minutes. Less than a lunch hour. That is massive innovation, but it didn't change the process. It just eliminated the latency that all of these systems and all of this work that had to be done in between the systems is now gone. We've simplified that entire architecture underneath the process so that it can be done in simply 20 minutes. If you look at some of the things that Under Armour has done, it's not just that they can do things that they were able to do before a little bit faster or even a lot faster. It's that they can now do things that were impossible to do in the past. Same thing with Spirit Airlines. They're solving $50 million problems that could never be solved before now that they have HANA. So it's not just about doing the same things you do today, faster, better, and cheaper. Yes, HANA does that, and that's amazing. But it's about being able to do these things and these processes and these calculations that are physically impossible to do in a regular database world. And this effect that HANA has on eliminating latency and simplifying the architecture is not simply limited to SAP's applications. HANA is a 100% ACID-compliant database. It speaks pure SQL, MDX, has JDBC drivers, ODBC drivers, everything that anyone would ever need to build on top of a database, and everything you'd expect if you wanted to build an application on a database is there. Not only for regular database type of applications, but also mobile applications, analytics, any type of analytics out there. This simplification of it is also amazing because HANA allows you to eliminate batch jobs entirely. Batch jobs today run 4, 5, 6 hours, sometimes take overnight, sometimes take over the weekend. We have customers that have 18-hour batch jobs. When they put those on HANA, they're now suddenly done in just a few seconds. So why would you run it as a batch anymore, right? When batch can be run in just a few seconds, there's no such thing as batch. You run it whenever you need it. This is that simplification. It's not just a simplification of the architecture, it's a simplification of the business process and a simplification of how companies get value out of those applications, whether they're transactional or analytical. As I just said, HANA is a standard database. It speaks SQL, it speaks MDX, it speaks whatever languages that an application developer needs to know in order to use the database. It's pretty straightforward from the outside. In fact, it's so straightforward that SAP has every one of our 25,000 application developers reprogramming everything we build to take advantage of HANA. This is a massive, massive commitment and resources from SAP's perspective. And we're not doing it just because we have a new database that SAP's running. What we're doing is because not only can we take everything that we've already built and make it faster, better, and cheaper than it has been in the past, but having the power of HANA and the simplification of the architecture and that speed gives us the ability to completely reimagine things and do things that were impossible for us to do in anyone else's database. This is a massive explosion of innovation coming from SAP, and we're using it for everything we make. Our entire portfolio is being optimized for HANA right now and optimized for the cloud at the same time. So by powering everything with HANA, it not only gives us that instant real-time insight into what's going on, but allows us to do it in a massively, massively simplified way and a massively lower cost of ownership for our customers. And this is where SAP thinks that this is the big game changer for our customers going forward. SAP HANA is not just an engine for SAP, though. It's an engine for our customers to power their future innovations as a company. If you look at some of the reactions, they're absolutely phenomenal and pretty mind-blowing innovation. John Deere has completely revolutionized the way that farmers use their equipment to optimize production of crops, thus producing crops at a lower cost and more abundant crops. AMG from Mercedes has been able to completely change the way that they deliver innovation to their customers. And then eBay is doing some amazing data analytics inside their massive ecosystem of sellers to figure out better ways to serve their buyers and their sellers. And SAP HANA has an absolutely amazing real impact on the way companies do their operations today as well. If you look, Nongfu Springs has been able to speed up their processes by 300% by putting them on top of HANA without changing hardly anything in the applications. Antare has been able to get a 50% increase in market share and greater operational control by using HANA. And Unilever, one of the biggest global brands in the world, has been able to increase their growth and their operational efficiencies massively, allowing their company to achieve its profitability goals that is promised to investors. But some of the things that I think are actually more exciting are really beyond the scope of what traditional businesses and SAP's traditional applications do. If you look at HANA, we're actually really changing quality of life for people around the world. For example, Boston has been able to actually use SAP HANA to provide higher level security from their police forces to different types of at-risk areas inside the community. MKI does genetic analysis for cancer treatment of cancer patients. They've been able to reduce the process, the time that it takes to analyze a cancer tumor and the right clinical approach to treating it from 2 days down to 20 minutes. Hopefully you'll never have to experience getting cancer and getting a diagnosis like that. But if you do, I can assure you, waiting 2 days is a lot worse than waiting 20 minutes. And then also, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we're actually improving the fan experience. The NBA has been able to completely revolutionize the way that its fans consume data and analytics about their favorite players, their favorite teams, and the performance of the league in whole by using HANA to real-time provide those analytics to their fans through a new mobile application. And that's just a very, very small sample of the 4,000 plus SAP HANA customers we have around the world innovating in real time now that they've eliminated that boat anchor of the disk-based database underneath their SAP applications and powered their innovation with the new technology and innovation from SAP HANA. Across all of our customers, we've seen some absolutely mind-blowing improvements into the way that they do their business. For example, the University of Kentucky got a 509% ROI on a very small HANA project, which actually helps them identify predictively at-risk students and get them the help they need to make sure that they graduate. You look at total TCO, reduction of 37% by Forrester has estimated in one of their studies over 4 years. A 37 times data footprint reduction by putting financials on top of SAP HANA. We've got over 60 new applications powered by HANA, and over 1,200 startups are taking their ideas, their innovation, and power them with HANA to bring that innovation to new types of customers around the world. So let's talk for a minute about how HANA actually does this. What makes HANA so special and so different that you can have a single copy of the data in a single place for OLAP and OLTP. It can do any type of data at any type of real-time speeds. And it does it in memory, it does it in the cloud, it does it in your data center. How did we do this? So let's take a look under the hood of HANA and see how we enable all of these things to really change the game. First of all, and most importantly, HANA is a standardized, asset-compliant database, just like every other database you've ever seen or heard of or worked with. From the outside, what's under the hood inside the black box is what makes HANA really, really unique, one of a kind on the planet today. So from the outside, any application, any type of application that speaks SQL or MDX can talk to HANA, right? We've had high school kids actually come in that knew Java programming and learned how to work with HANA over a weekend with nothing more than a little bit of Red Bull and pizza. It's not hard, right? But the big difference about HANA is not just that it's a SQL compliant database, but it has many, many more things underneath the hood than any other database in history. The reason we can do that is because by putting the data in RAM all the time, we're putting it in the same pool of RAM as the application is. So we can start to melt together a lot of the different things that you would separate normally in an application layer versus in a data layer. And because of that, we can now put application engines directly inside the database of HANA. And this allows us to do some absolutely magical things. For example, not only do we have obviously search and text analysis and things like that, but we've been able to actually insert the entire statistical language of R inside HANA and execute those algorithms inside the database on the data. We also have geospatial inside there. We have a rules engine. We've just released a new version of Service Pack for HANA that actually has an event processor inside of it. We have all of the predictive analysis libraries, the business function libraries, and we have calculation engines that can calculate any type of algorithm that humans can devise. The most complex that exist in the world today. All of these happen because HANA is natively inside the same pool of RAM as the data, and you can put all of these different application calculations and anything that's data intensive operations inside the database. This is truly unique in the world. There's nothing like it from anybody. And the most important thing is it's simple, because it's one single copy of the data, one single table for the data. And whether you're doing a transaction on that table or you're doing a read for analytics on that table, OLAP and OLTP are merged together inside the database into a single table. That simplification of effort is absolutely amazing. And that really is what, from an operational standpoint, makes HANA truly, truly unique. Starting on the left, we have probably the most simple HANA use case, where you take HANA as a database, you set it up, you put a bunch of data in it from whatever systems you want, and then you slap some sort of front end on top of it to do some reporting. We call this our HANA platform, or our Agile Data Mart use case. And this is a very popular one for a lot of people, because when they have these types of big data, or they have these types of very hard calculations that have to be done, just putting the data from a bunch of different systems inside HANA is simple and easy and quick, and they can have all of that power at their fingertips. In reality, a lot of these HANA as a data mart scenarios take 2 weeks as a project to put together with 2 or 3 people. They're very simple, they're very fast, and they're very cheap from a resource perspective to get put together. But the value for these is absolutely amazing. People can start to see things and do things with the data that were physically impossible for them to do in any other system. Right next to that, we have HANA for the suite. And there's 2 or 3 different ways to do this. We have new applications that SAP is building that are extensions of standard types of functionality in the suite of SAP applications. This allows us to actually build new applications without rebuilding everything, but to build them on top of HANA, so they're absolutely mind-blowing performance for those. A similar one is what we call our sidecar, or the HANA accelerators just next to that, where we're not changing the functionality of the SAP system, we're just turbocharging it with HANA. And this one is actually really simple as well. This just takes a week or 2 for a project. You take a HANA box, you stick it next to your running live SAP system and whatever slow broken database is underneath it. You offload the processing of these big transactions to that new HANA database on the side, and it runs on a physical copy of the same data that's in your production system. Absolutely low risk. No chances for failure because you still have your old database underneath it, but you get all that power and speed of HANA in just a few days worth of a project. Really, really amazing value for SAP customers. Next to that, obviously we're powering everything with HANA, and so you're seeing all of the SAP applications in the cloud now are being retrofitted and renovated to run on HANA. And so all of those will get the power of HANA today. We already have several of those in the SuccessFactors and Ariba world, and just about everything else will be coming online on HANA very, very quickly. The next one, and probably one of the more popular ones today, is BW on HANA. BW is the business warehouse from HANA, and if there's any SAP customer out there that's running BW on a regular old database, disk-based database, it's slow and expensive and painful. Every one of them, instantly when going to HANA, gets massive, massive performance of thousands and thousands of times better query performance, and also hundreds, if not thousands of times better operational activities, like data loading and activations. This is a no-brainer for everybody on HANA, on BW to go to HANA. You also look at Business One, which was the first ERP system to run on HANA, which is our small to medium enterprise solution. Phenomenal value for small to medium businesses who might not have some of the big data challenges that some of the bigger companies from SAP have, but it allows them to do things in real time, which was impossible to do before in an old database. In addition, you can get the whole suite from SAP running on HANA today. We have several hundred customers that have flipped out their entire SAP system from an old Oracle or IBM or Microsoft database and put the whole thing natively, singly, 100% on top of HANA, and they absolutely love it. Everything is faster, and some things are hundreds of thousands of times faster just by putting the whole thing on top of HANA. And in addition, the last use case is actually any application. Anything that needs to be built and needs a database can be done on HANA. And we have some amazing use cases from companies that don't have any SAP solutions whatsoever that take HANA, build an app on top of it, and power their innovation in real time with SAP HANA. And I want to stop and take a second to kind of debunk a few of the myths that you might have heard or heard spread around by SAP's competitors about HANA. The first of which is that you have to have a massive storage footprint for HANA, which is absolutely untrue. HANA has an incredibly efficient algorithm to do compressions on the data. And so what we typically look at is, instead of a 1-to-1 ratio, which you might consider in a regular database world, actually it's about a 4-to-1 ratio. Because of the way that HANA does the compressions. And it really allows you to decrease the storage requirements that are needed. And we've done some really, really deep engineering work with folks like EMC and NetApp to ensure that those storage requirements are as low as possible, and that companies can reuse their investments in those technologies. Very similar to that, because of this tailored integration we've got with the certified hardware partners, we're allowing customers to use off-the-shelf industry-standard Intel-based processors and servers for their HANA implementations. They're specially certified by SAP, but they're standard off-the-shelf things from 12 different hardware vendors, just about everybody you can imagine, that allows you to use really, really inexpensive hardware to run this massively, massively performant database from SAP. At the same time, people say, well, putting all of your data into RAM is a very expensive thing. Let me address that very quickly. Yes, RAM is about 20 times more expensive than disk per terabyte for storage, but you're doing the wrong calculation because you're actually only looking at cost per terabyte. When you start adding speed in there, RAM is 10 million times faster access speeds than disk. So while you might pay 20 times more for the storage, you're actually getting 10 million times better performance. But that's not even the entire story. You don't actually have to put all of your data into storage. With tiered storage and tiered data from SAP, we're allowing you to take cold or infrequently used data and put that in a sidecar mode with some lower cost alternatives from SAP, which really allows you to maximize HANA for the hot things that you need to do while still having access in a very federated way to all the data that you might need once in a while. People say, well, HANA can't be virtualized. That's absolutely untrue. We actually have a really great partnership with both Amazon in their cloud and with VMware to do HANA in virtualized machines in multiple different sizes and configurations, which actually allows you to do about 30% cost savings over the bare metal opportunities. And then also we like to tell people that HANA is really future-proof. We're building this database for the next 30 years of innovation for SAP and our customers. And so what we're trying to provide is every step of the way a future-proof opportunity for customers to switch to HANA and avoid any of these painful costs that they've encountered when switching from different versions of databases in the past. So hopefully that's given you a good overview of HANA and the impact it can have for customers and their innovation. Let's talk a little bit more about specifically what VARs need to think about and some of the different benefits that they get from partnering with SAP to sell HANA and help their customers power their innovation with SAP HANA. The first thing is HANA is a non-discountable product, and so if you're familiar with the SAP price list and the way that we do things, that's a bit unique, and there's a lot of strategic reasons for that. But that doesn't mean that you can't make a very good profit off of selling HANA with SAP's help. The first thing is for HANA full use licenses for indirect install base and indirect new customers, there's a 30% PPI, the Partner Profitability Index. And so really that's the margin that partners will be paid on when they sell HANA to an indirect customer. At the same time, all HANA LREA versions, in the case of a pure database swap, so if you're helping SAP swap from a non-SAP database to HANA, that's also a 30% PPI. And then also all HANA LERA versions, in the case of direct customers, when you offer a pure database swap, you also get a PPI percentage on that. So it's a very profitable product from SAP to sell and promote to your customers and install base. That's going to not only help them run their businesses better, but it also helps your company along the way as well. And with that, I want to say thank you very much for attending this session. I hope you learned a lot. I hope this got you started on the right path to learning more about HANA and learning how you guys can promote it to your customers to help make them a best run business. Thanks a lot.